order. My name for the record is Denise Merrill. I'm the former Secretary of State of Connecticut and chair of this mission on America 250. We've been meeting for some time now, several years, and we have a lot to report on today. And of course, I'm joined by my vice chair, Jason Mancini from the Humanities Council. Before we start, I just want to briefly touch on something that I came across because I think it's of interest to all of us. Obviously, this first meeting of 2025 finds us in a very tumultuous time. We have been meeting for several years and we're trying to map out a commemoration and celebration of the 250th anniversary of the founding of the country. There are a number of events involved with that. We can do hard work on last.
Now.
Everyone hear us? During the screens? Great. Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the meeting of the Commission on America 250. I am Denise Merrill, for the record, the former Secretary of the State of Connecticut, commissioned by the governor to chair this meeting. And I'm joined by my vice chair, Jason Mancini, of the Connecticut Humanities Council, the executive director. We've been meeting for several years as a commission. We have much to show for it and a lot to talk about today. But this being the first meeting of the 2025 group of meetings, I thought I'd take a minute to just talk about the times we're in and some things I've been seeing that make me rethink the fact that we are doing some very important work. I first want to say a few words about the Humanities Council. The Humanities Council, the Connecticut Humanities Council has been administering this mission and spearheading the work we've been doing now for all these years. But it's now under severe budgetary constraints due to the canceling of funding at the national level. And today we want to discuss, among other things, the potential effects of this disastrous policy change on our work and what we can do to manage it. And maybe what we can do to help make sure that the state legislature, as well as the national legislature, understands the importance of the things that we can do in this council across the country. I believe several of them have already covered. Is that correct?
They are on their way. Many
So this is a very real situation and very real for us in particular, since the Humanities Council is prominent for the work of this commission. In this time of change and uncertainty, I want to remember the importance of it for that reason. And I wanted to share with you a recent research project from something called the Nation of Law. Colin Elwood, who is an author of a book called The American Nations. It's a very interesting book about the founding of our country and the 11 American nations that he talks about. He spearheaded this project, and it basically shows that most Americans share a common vision for the country. One thing that brings us together is they're finding that a broad consensus, over 65% of all Americans feel that the purpose of the United States is to seek to achieve the civic ideals that are written in our quote opening statement as a people. And that opening statement is the Declaration of Independence. And as you know, that is the work of this commission to celebrate that. The findings of the survey are summarized in a report released on March 12th this year, entitled "The Story of America: A Renewed Civic National Narrative for the United States." It seeks to answer the question, what still holds us together as Americans? by asking people if they would prefer to define their country by its commitment to civic ideals, or alternatively by shared ancestry, history, traditions, or culture. And I think the results are very interesting because they show that ideals-based definitions of the country were preferred by nearly every demographic category, whether it was race, age, culture, geographic location. So I think we should take heart in the fact that this commission, we're at the heart of this question. And the work we're doing reflects those values. It can be seen in the fees we pay for our work. So I think today about this present moment, which is frankly kind of terrifying. We don't know where we're going as a country. And it's kind of ironic in a way that we are sitting here today celebrating the first 250 years and constantly saying publicly in this commission, where will we be in the next 250 years? Which is an extremely important question, as you all know. So I hope we can keep that in mind and realize that maybe what we're doing here might be the last best hope of bringing people together around a set of ideas that everyone shares. I took it as a positive in a sea of change. And so I hope you will think about that today. So with that, I will start the meeting by the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 15th, 2025 meeting? Thank you very much. Motion by Norma Hill. Thank you. Seconding. Any discussion about the minutes from 2025? Any changes, questions, comments? Okay, if not, we will move on. As I said, I introduced Jason, and Jason has been most in touch with the activities of the commission, and I really want to thank him publicly and the staff for all the work they've been doing in a very trying situation. So Rachel and Cindy and Jason, our thanks for everything we've been doing. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Jason to continue on with the projects we're going to be reporting on. We're going to talk about the national scene and the regional scene in terms of what other commissions are doing, and that sort of thing. We are going to have a funding update, and so we can read down the agenda. So I'll just make that an opening statement so we all keep it on.
Thanks, Denise. Welcome everybody here and online. We certainly have a lot of news to share. The first thing we're going to do is a little look back 50 years ago and reflect on commemoration in 1976. We had a brief presentation by who's that? Public here from the State Library. We will share a little bit of that reflection on the where we were at 50 years ago, in 1975.
So thank you very much for asking me to come. So in going through the 4 boxes of materials that were given to the state archives back in the late 1980s, unfortunately, they only consisted of some project reports, vendor files for the various items that the commission produced or endorsed for funding. And there was no minutes, no fiscal reports included in that. We also don't have files from the Historical Commission itself. So I had to rely on a number of the documents in the Connecticut Documents Collection to produce this report. So I can't say this is what specifically happened by April of 1975, but I can give you some background on how the commission developed and also on some of the projects that they endorsed. It's not going to be a full picture, but it's the best that I could do at this point. And then the annual reports to the governor were more administrative, like a county administrative digest. There wasn't a breakdown as well. So I'm sure the information is out there somewhere. We just don't have it at this time. Okay. Come on, add that. Oh, okay. Oop, too far now. Let's see. There we go. All right, so the first steps towards. There we go. So the Federal Bicentennial Commission was created in July of 1966, signed by President Johnson at the time. Governor Dempsey signed an executive directive in September of 1969. We don't have that in our archive either. We looked through the governor's papers. To begin with the Connecticut Historical Commission, which is the forerunner to the Historic Preservation Office, to begin planning for the bicentennial. And then the commission held a public hearing. There's an article from the Hartford Courant from January 25th, I believe, or 24th, the day after, summarizing what was discussed at the hearing. And things were that they were going to encourage cooperation between the 13 original colonies. Several historical societies pledged support and encourage inclusion of local stories. The DAR hoped that the commission would give birth to a new patriotism. The ACLU commented that this should be a unique opportunity to commit totally to liberty as a supreme value of human society. Everyone was in agreement that they should avoid falling into the trap of being little more than an exercise of chauvinism. And the Commission on the Arts was talking about how they could leverage artist contributions such as visiting artist programs for the schools to interpret the revolution and its impact today. One of the more interesting suggestions was a traveling showboat exhibit of Connecticut history that would go up and down the Connecticut River and along the shoreline. So, and then Public Act 71, 620 added sections to the Historical Commission and established the American Revolutionary Bicentennial Commission of Connecticut. All right. That act appointed the Historical Commission as the ARBCC, and that the commission staff would support the work of the commission. They did receive an initial appropriation of $25,000, and then were allowed any monies that came in for the commission and its work would be placed in their general fund for their use. Initially, there was no end date, but then later on, in alignment with the federal commission, later administration, they chose to, they were going to end it at the date of the ratification of the Treaty of Paris. There was also a 14-member advisory council, and the charge of the Bicentennial Commission was to decide how the state was going to approach the commemoration, and the statute suggested these items itself. So a newsletter, official seal, education materials, and then cooperation with other states and encourage participation. Key people that were on the committee, Eric Hatch, who was a novelist and radio station executive, was the chair. Stage historian Albert Van Dusen was also on there. Whitney Brooks, who was a Tarleton banker and former president of the Connecticut League of Historical Societies. And then there was a representative from the state Senate, as well as the House of Representatives. The advisory council created 7 subcommittees. You can see the areas there that they were focusing on, and their role was to communicate pride in Connecticut's heritage, especially for the youth. The quote from an article about it was that it was going to be more than just parades and pageants. And then highlight the commission in the relevance of the revolution to 1996. Some key people who are on this commission, on this advisory council, was the state police commissioner, Cleveland Kucinich, the state DAR historian, Marietta Morris of Cos Cobb, the education commissioner, William Sanders, and then Chase Bowie Woodhouse from Baltic, who was a two-time representative in the U.S. House, and state librarian Walter Braun. Okay, just like today, we had themes. We had Heritage 76, so it was recalling the heritage and placing it in historical context, and re-examine the country's origins, values, and meanings. Festival, some places called it Festival 76, some places called it Open House USA, but it was to create activities that encourage tourism across the country to key spots that allowed Americans to expand their knowledge and have a particular welcome to foreign visitors. And then Horizons was looking towards the future on how either individually or with others that we would each take one kind of major project that displayed community pride, priorities, and hopes. So environmental was very strong in the materials that I read. The commission published a survey in January in various newspapers across the state. There's from the Hartford Courant. There was no file on this, so I have no idea how many people responded or what the individual's response were. But in the newsletter that the commission had, they reported that most fell within those three themes. Suggestions that were already part of the commission's program, such as commemorative medals or coins, or a movie on Connecticut's role in the Revolution, were included in there. Some of the other interesting suggestions was a bicycle route to Connecticut historical sites, an adult level Connecticut history course at the community colleges. I'm not sure what the person meant, but each town should play as closely as possible to roll from 200 years ago. Plaques on every houses that were over 100 years old. Historic themed arts festival on the Constitution Plaza. A bicentennial tree planting project to replace old and dying trees along state roadways and town greens. And improve environmental quality, decent housing, eliminate hunger, disease, and litters. And of course, a very Connecticut proposal was abolish the sales tax for the duration of the observance. Now you have to realize there was no income tax at that point, so that was a major source of Connecticut funding. All right. There was a lot of focus on the local level. And more than half of the towns in Connecticut were designated as bicentennial communities by January 1975. And their goal was to get all 169 towns. I was not able to determine if that happened. But there was quite a large participation. To receive the federal recognition as a bicentennial community, town plans needed to be based on the three themes, with an emphasis on creating a lasting reminder, and they had to represent all segments of the community. From what I can tell, by spring of 1976, there were over 1,000 projects scheduled to occur across the state. My favorite project that actually received grant funding was Bicentennial Compost Heap. So it was, I laugh at it, but I think a lot of our communities now have where they pick up the leaves and various compostable materials, and it was a part of the environment, but I just love that it was listed as the bicentennial composting. I didn't write down which town it is, so I don't remember. They promoted school committees at the Connecticut State Federation of Student Councils. Does that still exist? One of the most exciting projects that came out of the students was the Fermi 76 program. Enrico Fermi High School in Enfield developed a program that encouraged participation by the whole school community. They established a bicentennial resource center that contained books, recordings, slides, tapes, films, and other materials that schools throughout the state could borrow, as well as their own students and faculty. They sponsored workshops for all state high school representatives on their program and what you could do for the bicentennial, and they received national recognition for it. Twice they went to Washington as well as Boston, and they went to Las Vegas to the National Association of Secondary School Principals Convention to present on their program. Components included a heritage garden and hall of fame, exhibits, seminars on creative and performing arts, tours to historic sites, and social studies, independent studies, study projects and seminars in social studies and history. And then they had their bicentennial fair, which was 18th century games, races and contests, a period fashion show and music. It was a fundraiser to support their the projects, and the commission provided them with an initial $2,000 grant in 1973. And there's a listing from the 76 report of the various projects that were funded through the grant program. They ranged from $500 to $5,000, and each recipient had to provide a match. And as I said, there was over 1,000 projects by 76. Okay, so how did they pay for it? There were some state appropriations in 74. The legislature provided $40,000 for community programs and granted the commission authority to make grants and aid. They did receive some federal money for various projects, and I'll talk a couple of those later. They received funding from the Bicentennial Council of 13 United States, and then sanctioned memorabilia they got royalties from. I was in high school, I was my senior year of high school, in the class of 76. I remember the debate over commercializing the bicentennial. You know, everything and anything was being sold with the logo or something to do with the bicentennial. But that was the main source of funding for a lot of these projects, even at the federal level, was licensing the logos. And then the money was filtered down to the state commissions, to the communities who received the recognition from the federal government, and then through the sales. So some of the items, so like the pin there in the upper right-hand corner and the flags were sold at the local level. They were brought down to the local level, so the local commissions got a percentage as well as the state commission. So that was a lot of the funding came through there. The other big source of funding was the state bicentennial medal. Franklin Mint, which I thought had been around for ages and ages, but found out researching this that it only came into being in the 1970s. Held a national contest. They provided prizes as listed here. There'd be 4 winners in each state. And then our commission participated but retained the right to select which design would be our state medal, and then produce it through a local vendor here in Connecticut. There were 369 entrants from Connecticut, And if which they did, if they selected selected the winner as the state, then they got a higher percentage of, royalties from the Franklin Mint. So the winning, artist was Bernie Leddick, who was a professional artist. And his design of the fundamental orders took first place. And then, second place was a charter oak and declarations design from Edward Mack from Georgetown, who was a sculpture teacher and art historian lecturer. Third place went to Doris P. Bergdorf, who had she was from Southwind, but the charter oak with the consent of the people. And fourth place went to Victor Fusco, who was a design and development manager in Cheshire. Charter oak with its roots spread across the outline of Connecticut. All the rest, the gentlemen were listed by their professions. Doris was listed as a housewife and freelance artist. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Let's see, local bicentennial committees also created their own medals for sale. Weathersfield, Windsor, Plymouth, I found records of their bicentennial medals. A lot, this came in sterling, silver, bronze, and something else. The sterling silver were the most expensive, down to $3.50, which is about $20 today. For the lower quality. I looked up on eBay. You can buy the sterling silver for about $400, and if you convert it back down, it's actually less than what you were paying in the 1970s. So, anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting. The Connecticut Bicentennial Gazette was the best source of information that I have. It was named after the first newspaper published in Connecticut, and it came out in New Haven in April of 1755. So the content was timeline of events that were going on, so 200 years ago today in history, as well as what was going on for state and local planning and events, and the subscription was $1 per year. It ran from, the first issue there was 1972, I think. It's either 72 or 73, up through 1978, which was the last issue was published. They also created, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the Revolutionary War Bicentennial series. They were planned on 40 titles. They actually published 35. There was information to try to figure out a list of all of them, but it would take some additional research, especially the 5 titles that didn't get published. Again, the commission paid for the design work and publication of 40 copies, and Pequot paid for all the other publications costs. The authors were given $1,000 but did not receive royalties. David White, who was on the staff of the Historical Commission, that was included as part of his job duty, so he wasn't paid for his books. So they're still around. They were patterned after the Tercentenary books. And I've heard people talk about updating some of these, especially ones that deal with a town or a local level about updating them. Film shift, boy, did this bring back memories. They created 2 film strips, one for K through 8 and one through high school, and then for adult presentations. They created 100 copies of each title. We actually found the 9 through 12 version of it in the museum. Amongst the stuff that the museum staff had collected. And so we do have that. We don't have the K through 8. But that was what was made available for that. They produced a motion picture, Resolved to be Free. It was produced by Fenwick Productions. Ellsworth Grant, that was his company. He was also the mayor of West Hartford. He was also the brother-in-law of Katharine Hepburn. And so she hasn't, you can tell it's definitely her narrating it, but she's not credited in there. We have the DVD of it in our collection. Our digital records archivist was able to convert it to an MP4. It's very dark, as you can see. That's a screenshot of the opening title. I'm hoping to be able to track down possibly the original film itself and get it redigitized. I'm sure it'll be a much better quality.
Close to the end.
I'm getting there. Yep.
We just have to wrap up.
Okay. So. We had the Nathan Hale balloon that went around. We tried to track that down and we don't know where it is at the moment. What happened to it? There was Liberty trees planted. Again, there was supposed to be a redwood seedling. Well, there actually was planted on the Capitol grounds. Again, it's not there. We went and looked. It should be about 100 feet tall. So something happened to it. The last known image we have was in 1978 and it was about 6 feet tall.
I'm in California, I think redwood trees don't be that long. Maybe men of demise.
Yeah. Well, California said that all the 13 state seedlings, so. Okay, really quickly, the big thing that came out of this, which never came to fruition, is the commission decided that the permanent state bicentennial memorial was to be a state museum of Connecticut history, not the one at the state library. This was totally separate. Through the course of development and allocations from the legislature, they adopted the commons concept rather than a traditional museum. It was supposed to be located on the grounds next to Connecticut Valley Hospital. It was to be statewide. They had traveling exhibits, a trailer, museum consulting services, radio and television program. There was supposed to be 62 people working there. It was going to be indoors and outdoors. There was going to be a trail so you could have demonstrations. It was very forward looking. It got as far as in 75 an allotment from the General Assembly to get architecture designs, which I never found. When it was sunsetted, even though it was part of the commission's, it was sunsetted in 1984 and it was dropped because there was no funding for it. So, and the commission was dissolved in 84. So, I'm sorry it went a little longer, but there was really no way to say it at this point.
Thank you. That an illuminating trip down memory lane. I wish we did this too. The parallels are obvious. Missed opportunities are clear. The riverboat, the showboat down the Connecticut River.
Yeah.
Could have been interesting. I don't think we come up with that.
Yeah.
I think a third museum of Connecticut history would be ill-advised. But this was great.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking when I was putting this together, how would you translate it today? And maybe you would do something virtually, where you would draw from all the collections at the various museums across the state and historical societies, and you could have a virtual museum, virtual exhibit.
Well, I think if nothing else, our look back 50 years has been informative, but I hope that you all, as the library, are collecting our professors.
So hopefully when you complete your work, you sign for the minutes. And the financial reports for the state library, so you have.
That's just the most because I know that we know that we face that. So I think we come together, we will go, representative from the government. Say a few words.
Everyone, that's me, I'm Scanlon. I began working in the governor's office in 2020. I was originally from the Customer Services Office, I worked my way up, and I now oversee the commissions for 4 years. It's an honor to be here, and it's nice to meet all of you. Very proud of that.
All right, we'll adjust the timeline accordingly, but next up is for a national and regional update. This has been continuing to participate in various conversations with our counterparts across the country.
So I will keep this brief and will not really tackle funding. I'll leave that for you all to talk about. But I did want everybody to know that we have been meeting with other commissions in New England and New York to talk about shared commemorative activities. As part of that, we will be heading up the commemoration of the Fort Ticonderoga expedition here in Hartford. Well, not here, but in Hartford. Along with the commissions from Vermont and New York. That will be taking place on April 28th. Hartford funded and provided the first soldiers to go from New England to Ticonderoga to steal ammunition from the British and bring it back to New England at the beginning of the Revolutionary War. So that will be at Connecticut's Old State House on April 28th, and there's more information here in your packet. There will also be a convening of 250th planners here in the Northeast on June 2nd in Newport, Rhode Island. You can contact Rachel if you're interested in attending. Unfortunately, that is the same day as the League's conference. So we had no choice on the date, so it will be tough for many folks here in Connecticut to attend. A common cause for all, there were a few different national efforts introduced at that gathering in Virginia this year. So one was, which we've heard about in the past, but an official launch date for the American Revolution documentary by Ken Burns, which will be November 16th of 2025 via PBS. Another is a coordinated national reading of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th of 2026. Coordinated potlucks around the country on July 5th of 2026. Citizenship ceremonies on July 4th. 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army on June 14th, 2025. And then the 250th of the Marine Corps on November 10th, 2025. So we will be trying to link up with as many of these initiatives as possible. And we might bring some to this group for further discussion in July, at July's meeting, once we gather some more information. Much like Two Lights for Tomorrow, which is occurring on Friday and Saturday of this week. These are all initiatives being spearheaded by different state commissions. So there is a hope that commissions will participate, but it is not being gathered up by anybody at the federal level. The American Association for State and Local History also introduced 250con this year. And in your packets, you'll see some information about different nationwide initiatives that they are encouraging folks to participate in. they are also working on developing common metrics that all state commissions will be encouraged to collect. So that they can put together a national report on the 250th efforts. America 250, which is the National Commission, it will be having 3 tentpole initiatives. They originally had about 10 different ones that they've narrowed down to these top 3 that they'll be pursuing. So it's America's Field Trip, which we've mentioned in the past. We had a 2nd place winner from Connecticut last year, and today is the deadline for submitting anything to America's Field Trip. Our American Story will be, I don't quite remember the difference between Our American Story and America's Invitation, but there are links here. One is an effort to collect stories from around the country, and the other is an effort to nominate public service officials around the country. And then finally, the White House Task Force recently reached out to us. That task force was started very early on in the new administration, towards the end of January. They have asked all of the state commissions to share with them 3 initiatives that they are pursuing. So we shared with them Red, White, and Blue Schools, our statewide exhibition, and an event on the 4th of July as 3 initiatives that we are working on. Thinking that those are initiatives that are most in line with some of the work that they're thinking about on the national level. So happy to answer any questions, and we'll continue to keep everybody informed of what is going on programmatically on the national level.
Questions for?
Yeah, our, Cindy, is America 250 is national,
Correct.
and the White House task force, are they a joint group, or are they, working their own paths?
So they are working together in the sense that, America 250 is working on their tentpole initiatives. That is what they are doing. The White House Task Force is working with all federal agencies, so they are working with the America 250 Commission, but they're also working with organizations like the National Endowment for the Humanities, National Endowment for the Arts, and other federal agencies to move forward 250.
Online. Well, I guess that's a good opportunity to pivot to funding updates on the federal and state level. You know, if we look at some of the administration's initiatives around the 250, we're confronted with the reality that the administration is also essentially gutted many of the agencies that will do this work. Specifically, 2 weeks ago, today at midnight, I received 4 emails from Doge staffers that terminated all of our funding at Connecticut Humanities. And at the same time, terminated all open grants to National Endowment for the Humanities, direct grant recipients in Connecticut and across the country. This is sort of a catastrophic hit on the cultural sector and for humanities. We're going to hear from Deborah in a minute, certainly with museums and libraries. So we're left right now sort of imagining our future and what that looks like. And we're not doing it alone. We're thinking about this both at the state level with our federal partners across the country, and pursuing various actions that seek to restore funding to the National Endowment and to other agencies like the Institute of Exam and Library Services. We stand to lose a lot, not just across the country, in the state, but these agencies serve to bind us as a nation. And I think that many of the programs, projects, and the exhibits that will no longer happen now and in the future will only continue to sort of break apart the fabric of the country. So we're in a particular moment where we have an opportunity to advocate for the restoration of these funds, whether it's at the national level, and where we have perhaps a bit more control here with our commission, our organizations to advocate to the governor and the legislature to make these kinds of investments in the work that we do. Because I believe that it's critical to the quality of life in Connecticut and to the fabric of the work that we do. Specifically for the humanities, Connecticut Humanities will be losing $1.1 million of operating support, and then another $800,000 or so to the specific direct grants coming to Connecticut to support the different cultural organizations. Deborah, handed to you for a brief update on what the impact is on library exams through the IMLS. Because the cost is continues to grow.
Yes, no, thank you, Jason. So, as Jason talked about, something similar is happening at the Institute of Library Services. About a month ago, there was an executive order issued, related to 7 agencies, including IMLS, directing them to reduce their operations to a minimal legally required amount. What we have seen so far is a staff of about 75 was first put on leave, and about 12 people have returned at this point. Chiefly legal staffers and very minimal program officials. And so we are aware, so far as we are aware, all discretionary grants to libraries and programs across the country have now been notified that they are terminated effective essentially April 1st or April 8th. That also includes 3 state libraries that receive grants to states, the Library Services Technology Act funding. Connecticut, Washington State, and California were notified that that funding has been terminated as well. This is our largest source of federal funding to support libraries across the country. Every state receives at least some amount of money, at least $1 million and more based on population. Connecticut receives about $2.1 million every year of this funding that supports 13 staff in our Division of Library Development, as well as the many programs, resources, and services that they provide to libraries across the state. Just to give you some perspective, we have 191 public libraries in Connecticut. There are about 950 libraries total, other types of libraries as well. All of them are qualified to participate in our services. So there has been a lawsuit filed by Attorney General Paul. This is in coordination with 20 other states being led by New York, Rhode Island, and Hawaii. And there is a hearing on Friday related to a preliminary injunction for that lawsuit. For what happens. So far, no other state has received that notice, but everyone is just waiting for the notice. So, as Jason alluded in the same way to the NUH funding and the catastrophic effect of the cultural sector, we would see something very similar to the state.
So what we do know is that some of we do know that about 80% of NEH's staff has been like a reduction in force, and that some of the funding from NEH will be used and repurposed for national statute. Specific name by the Garden of Miracles. So this affects us all. The funding cuts are dire. That will have the ultimate impact on Connecticut Humanities operations. We may not actually be here for July 4th, 2026, unless there's an investment. So, just need to sit with that for On the state level, we are working closely with partners and allies, and legislative champions to create a pathway for increased cultural funding. That exists in a couple of bills that have been proposed by the Finance Committee and the Appropriations Committee. That will allocate a portion of the meals tax towards arts, culture, and tourism. This is an opportunity for the state to invest in the work that we do. But given the seeming instability in Washington, we don't know how that is all going to. Everything's being stable. So anything that's ordinarily predictable is not predictable, and so extraordinary measures will be needed in so many sectors. We just don't know how that works. That said, there is a broad recognition that's something that needs to happen. We just don't know where the priority list is. So I would encourage everybody here, everybody online, to reach out, legislature, the governor. Cindy, I think I can probably do it on at this point, unless there are questions from any of you on funding limits.
I don't know if you wanted to touch on the work we're doing with Rob for federal funding, or I also have an update from Liz about NEA, if you want to share that.
I don't have that specific update. Thanks for the reminder. Do you want to share your update, Rob? Sorry, scratched out.
I'll mute the microphone because I know that you trouble hearing.
Thank you. I know that these are certainly challenging times as we discussed. Funding from IMLS, as Deborah talked about, certainly has a huge impact on libraries, also museums. There are a lot of existing grants that are questionable at this point, and I think that pending grants are just not going to be part of the conversation. However, one of the things that I was involved with last year with John Hickville from AASLH is a letter that was signed by members of Congress to really do two things. One, to support or to acknowledge that America 250 is happening in 2026 and that there should be further support. That letter was signed by two members of the Senate, two from the House, Republicans and Democrats both, and it resulted in about 50 or 60 signatures. It was a good first step and laid the groundwork for subsequent efforts. I've been working with John Hickville and also a federal lobbyist and Don Larson's office, and the strategy that we took to it here was to simplify the letter. Last year, the letter indicated that there were buckets with NEA, NEH, LS, National Park Service, and the Commission that could be used as sources, as resources to fund the work that's going on in the country. John Larson's office was really helpful and suggested that we simplify that as much as possible, and so we did. The letter was launched last week and is circulating through Congress. The same legislators that signed the letter last year agreed to do so again this year. So it's Senator Kramer from North Dakota, Representative Kagan from Virginia, John Larson from. The letter is simplified, as I mentioned, from John Larson's recommendation, and we're asking Congress to recognize the 50th, and the federal government should support it. We're suggesting $50 million to IMLS, so it's a chance to put IMLS a little bit more front and center, and then the other is the commission, but the request is to have $50 million to be reallocated to the state commission. We all know it's a Hail Mary, and it's a the difficult sell in the current climate, but, the feelings between ASLH, myself and my lobbyist was FY 26 would be the last chance to do something like this with the federal government, so it was worth the effort. And this other thing that, we're working with the humanities is an earmark. And I know it sounds, again, a little crazy to be talking about, additional funding from the federal government, but the, organization that I represent, Connecticut Museum of Culture and History, has been successful in securing 3 federal earmarks, and so far the funding continues. And so, the sense from our organization is that we're going to continue to do those projects as long as the funding exists. And don't tell Doge that we still have the money for. So our lobbyist has suggested that all the earmarks that were from FY 25 were wiped out. Our congressional delegation is taking those 25 FY 25 earmarks and moving them over to FY 26, but they're also accepting other requests. And so the conversation is to do a request for $3 million for programming for Connecticut 50 through Connecticut community. And so again, it's a little bit of a long shot for some additional funding, but earmarks need to be a pathway to some success with some funding with the federal government at the moment. And you're not aware, it's less than 1% of the discretionary budget. And it's been successful for the Deloro, and she was chair of appropriations, she brought it back, and it's got different restrictions than it had previously. Both parties seem to enjoy the benefit of bringing some of the federal funding back to their business. So we think it's a viable option. It's happening now in real time. And my team went with Cindy yesterday, and we're putting together something that would probably so worth a shot, and so we're dedicating some time and effort to try and bring some of those funds.
Just briefly from Liz, as of yesterday afternoon, there's no news regarding the NEA. Doge is visiting the NEA this week, and they are expecting news in the next 2 weeks, similar to the other agencies. State arts agencies are working to ensure that federal delegations across the US are aware that state art agencies, one, fund grants that are impactful and address needs across all communities in the country. The arts are not political, or not a political red or blue issue, and that currently state art agencies are very much involved in America 250 with the following statistics. 36 agencies are serving on state level America 250 commissions. 46 are actively or anticipating making grants to support America 250 projects. 51 of the agencies plan to promote America 250 activities through their communications channels, and 44 are participating in America 250 partnerships. So they are showing the ways that the arts is aligned with America 250 in the hopes of preserving their.
And just so the group knows, and folks on that, we should have a similar fate the fall, NEA, another $2 million. Both in support of the Office of the Arts and the grant funds.
Yeah, I can see through this. So we've shared a few plans in the past, but we really wanted to go briefly through the $0 plan. Anticipating, well, knowing the cuts that we have at Connecticut Humanities, anticipating that it is a challenging budget year on the state. And there are many competing efforts going on right now. So just a quick run through of some of the initiatives we've been working on and that will be continuing. One is completing our contact list for all 169 municipalities, continuing outreach via mail, email, and phone, and working with the engagement subcommittee on reaching back out to folks. We are at 86. And I actually think we have 2 more emails from this morning, so I think we might be at 88 now. So we are getting there. We are more than halfway there, so we'll continue that work.
It's an improvement on 1975, right?
Exactly. Community outreach, we are hoping to continue to connect the 250th with members of the public, but we are also recognizing our staff limitations. So we are working to put together some tabling kits that are portable and easy to distribute to local committees and affiliate organizations that might already be table places. So that will have some 250th information, a way to gather feedback from people and share it back with the commission. But maintaining that we do not have to pay for and have our staff at events all summer. Proclamations, we will be working on engaging all 169 municipalities to sign on to the work that the commission is doing via proclamations. This is another effort to get those 169 municipalities to sign on, but also getting us prepared for next year when we hope to have a recommitment ceremony. Recommitting to the ideals of the American to the ideals of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, on or around July 4th of 2026. And so there will be a ceremony in Hartford. We are collaborating with Hartford Bonanza to envision that as part of the 4th of July festivities, but are working to determine what the best approach moving forward for that is, but it's a continuation of this local grassroots effort. We will continue the affiliate program during the governance subcommittee updates later. We'll have a little bit of discussion about that. But thinking about how we build a network of 250 organizations or more that really truly represent Connecticut and the work that we do here. If we hit up 250, we can up our goal to 500. Keep going. Education, we are working on a curriculum that can be distributed to grades 3, 5, 8, and high school, aligned with the Connecticut Council for the Social Studies Standards. Lisa Drew on our staff is working on this with support from the Department of Education and Steve and the Council for the Social Studies and some of their board members. The events calendar is currently on ct250.org and is migrating over to CT Visit. This is an initiative that we will continue and will use their power and audience to really amplify that work. As we mentioned earlier, aligned with the American Association for State and Local History, we will do some evaluation and collection of metrics, mainly from local committees and from affiliate organizations that are hosting events. And then finally, the statewide exhibition that we're working with Andy Horowitz on and the Museum of Connecticut History. And so in some way, with the $0 plan, it will probably be creating files that live online that people can download and print on their own or share in some other way. With added investment, we have broad visions of a trail of mini exhibitions that people can visit all over Connecticut. We will land somewhere between the $0 plan and the $100,000 plan and find a way to encourage visitation and spreading information to sites around the state. And that is it. Wonderful. Any questions on any of those initiatives?
Just an idea, you might look at Bloomberg, they've got a web-based, program that a lot of museums use. I haven't thought about it in terms of like a 250 project, but it's free. Yeah, and there's like architecture that's there, so you can download print files, audio files, movies, a whole range of things. Might be an interesting tool for online.
Have no questions. I will continue and touch on this other initiative that we've been talking about.
Cindy, can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, make it that.
So we are also talking about an effort to fundraise on behalf of and for local communities around the state. We are tentatively calling this Give 250 Connecticut. We have not done a big crowdsourcing effort like this before, so we are planning to begin with the 169 local committees. This idea is inspired by Give Local, which is run by the Connecticut Community Foundation, and the Great Give run by the Community Foundation of Greater New Haven. Although we would love to open this up to organizations around the state, we just have concerns about the size of that initiative. So by focusing on local committees, we are hoping to support the work that is going on at the municipal level. And hopefully, a lot of the other organizations statewide are involved in their local committees in some way, shape, or form. So this will be a website platform where local committees can create their own fundraising page. They can share their plans for their local initiatives and create different giving levels for people. Connecticut Humanities will buy into the platform, will solicit sponsors to offer prizes to different local committees, using our status as a 501c3 to accept these donations, and then our ability to grant back to municipalities to get the money back to folks. We're looking at 250 hours of giving right around the 4th of July, so launching on July 1st and going through July 11th. The hope is that this time period will give folks enough time to get the word out and intersects with some of the 4th of July activities, which hopefully gets more eyes on what's going on for the 250th. All 169 municipalities will be invited to participate, and they will each have a unique fundraising page. We will be developing instructions, offering office hours, and that will be leading up to, during, and after Give 250. We'll also have resources for the local committees on thanking donors and making sure that they have all of the information about who is giving to them and their work. And then we will, like I mentioned earlier, solicit sponsors to fund these prizes, and hopefully use this to expand funds available to local communities. So we will be launching this on the website in the very near future. But for now, we have a bit of a landing page that we'll be sending out to folks. What we will need help with is if anybody has any ideas for potential sponsors who might be interested in doing this type of work. And then additionally, if once we get a little closer and have marketing materials, we'll ask you to share out with your networks. And kind of really get the word out about this statewide. Any questions?
Question on that.
Yes, it is going to be the same GiveGab platform that CCF uses. Now it's called Bonterra Giving Day, but same idea. Yeah. So Amherst asked if it would be the same platform that the Connecticut Community Foundation uses, and the answer is yes. The hope is that folks are already familiar with that. Donors around the state have seen it. It's also the same platform that the Great Given uses. So. Any other questions?
Just to clarify, how do organizations participate as here they would in municipalities?
So, in different communities, every municipality has set up their local committee in different ways. In many places, nonprofits are part of or sponsoring the local committee. In Bridgeport, I know that they're thinking of their local committee as an extension of the Bourbon Festival, I believe. Is there a Barn Festival? I don't think I'm thinking of the Barn Festival.
No, there's a farm festival.
So I think they're thinking that the 250th will be an extension of that. So I'm not sure how they're getting local organizations involved in that. We've encouraged and helped the community that we were a part of. But I'm not sure how their plans to come together, other than being aligned with the Barn Festival.
Thank you, Cindy. We're gonna shift to program recap and upcoming plans with an update, report out by Rachel.
So I'm just gonna touch briefly on the conference that we hosted about a month or so ago now, at the end of March. It was at UConn, shaping commemoration, rooted in belonging. And we had a lot of help from Andy, who's online, getting us connected with some folks from the UConn History Department. And they were very helpful and instrumental in getting us the space. We didn't have to pay for the space, which was huge. Plenty of other costs, but didn't have to pay for the space. And so big thank you to Andy for getting us connected over there. We also had a conference planning committee, which had some of these fun folks on it, as well as some folks from the Connecticut Humanities Board. And they met with us several times throughout the course of the fall and into the spring to get everything kind of situated. And it went, I think, really well. We got a lot of good feedback. So we ended up with ironically 250 registrations for the conference exactly. So we really took the nail on the head there. Not quite everybody showed up, but we had about 217 people there on the actual day of for all or part of the day. So it was really well attended. It was really neat to see. We had a couple of keynote addresses. Michael D. Haddam, who is based down at Yale and has a book out looking at the memory of the American Revolution. He gave our opening keynote address in the morning. And there is a recording of that that's available on our website, as well as our afternoon keynote address from Akia de Barros-Gomes. And she's on the CTH board, and she kind of spoke on how we can bring some of those ideals forward through today. That's also available online. We had Catherine Chen from WNPR is Where We Live came, she moderated a panel, and that was recorded and produced into an episode of Where We Live that aired on WNPR a few weeks ago, with a little bit of information from Jason thrown in there as well. So those are all available for anybody. They're linked on our website. In terms of breakout sessions, we have 17 sessions total across 6 different tracks. So we have a whole lot going on. And the feedback that we've gotten from folks is that they really enjoyed it. They got a lot of it. Really good to hear. Our budget kind of got shifted a little bit as we went through and planned it. The budget numbers are on there. I'm not gonna go through it, but it is linked from the agenda if you're wanting to see it. And if you're here in person, but there's a budget on that. Of that sheet on the conference. And then a quick summary of our survey. We got about 25% of the folks that attended to complete after the fact survey, and generally positive feedback. We got most critiques or requests, for more logistical critiques. Or challenges with the conference space, things like that. So the content that they got, generally, it seems like people were pretty pleased with. So some information there on that sheet as well, which again is linked from the agenda. Most requested follow-up activities, so things that we should be thinking about doing in the future. Are the kind of more practical and skill building sessions. So we had a couple of those at the conference itself, but definitely folks are interested in seeing more of that. And then some thought sessions around the core themes, networking sessions. So I think folks had appreciated being able to connect with people that were doing the kind of work across the state, and then brainstorming gathering. So people are looking forward to the future, and hopefully we'll be able to participate in some of those things in smaller settings, or potentially a conference, depending on how things go. But questions about the conference?
Thank you. Rachel.
So,
On to principals,
Well, that's what you do, so we'll get that now, we should do that, we'll start in 2005. And now we are in partnership at Pharmacy Center with the Secretary of State's office and the Department of Education. And the program is designed to encourage and inspire really high quality school education in school districts. So we are every year. Schools or districts submit the work that they've done and then field of their students, and we get the outstanding submissions from that. And those schools are honored. And now, thanks to the Secretary of State's office, we have $1,000 recognition prize for school because it's really well. And this is really helping to raise the quality of education in Connecticut. We just got our final applications in for this year. We have 19 this year, which we will not have since before COVID. And so that's really good. And help from the Scripps Family Foundation and Humanities, we were able to bring in a consultant this year who helped us with the program, which is great. These are usually it's like Ariane, Steve, me and my staff doing things on the pen. But Jennifer, worked on the social studies, the new social studies standards for Connecticut, and it's very well connected and knows everything. Has put together and provided them for regulated resources like we've never had before. So now educators are connected with the communities, all kinds of videos and posts, all things that Jennifer has made. So we're in really good shape with red, white, and blue. We have team every year. This year it's our government voice, and we'll probably have something. It's like got all the submissions in, and it's are not against them, not but by looking at everything. Submission, we're really eager to start looking at them and seeing what is done this year. And we encourage everybody to promote this program in a really good way. And civics is one thing that teachers are often seeing. And it's really important, as we all know, for all of us to really know how the government works and why it works, and all of those kinds of things. The more people know, the better we can continue. And the great thing about a broad-based program like Red, White, and Blue is that it's really not. So you're not just educating kids, you're educating teachers, because you want to teach and improve days over the course of many years, and you're getting the stuff home to parents. So we're really pleased and grateful that we were able to move forward by leaps and bounds this year.
I just add one thing too, real quickly, another civics program that will augment, and hopefully the two programs will support each other. There is legislation pending to have next year have civic seals that be available for students, but where the Red, White, and Blue program honors schools, the civic seal program would honor individual students. So hopefully this will pass the legislation, and to repeat, the two programs can support each other.
And
I just wanted to add to what Sally said about red, white, and blue schools. What I love about the program is that it's so broad in how schools can participate. We're not kind of dictating specific programs, so they can kind of work with, submit projects that work for them. And also there's an encouragement to partner or work in the communities. So students are encouraged to go out and, work in the community, which I think is really important for kids to get that experience and then for the community to benefit from that as well. So.
I have a question, you guys, about this. Have we ever sought private sponsorship for the red, white, and blue schools? I know we haven't really had the capacity to do that in the past. I don't know if this is an opportunity, or have we tried this?
Yeah, so Sally had mentioned funding from the Scripps Family Foundation. They're a wonderful group that has supported a lot of the work that we do at Connecticut Humanities, and we thought that this might be a great opportunity to engage them in support of this particular initiative, especially across our organizations, but also in its clear alignment with the 250th initiative, and then the broad access and sort of range of opportunity for students and teachers to engage the subject matter. So, it's something that we're very excited about in terms of continuing to seek that kind of funding, but we certainly like the collaboration.
Great. Yeah, that seems like fertile ground for that. It's a great program. It has a good, solid track record now. And, we should be looking even beyond that. So something to think about.
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Okay. Much of what happens here on the commission, and I think part of why Connecticut Humanities has been so interested in administering this work, is because so much of it intersects with things that we already do. Much of our work, whether at the commission or across Connecticut Humanities, but as the public may be aware, is through our grant making. And we had prioritized 250th based projects with our grant making. So we have our grants officer, Leanne Kanya, who will provide an update on recent 250th projects that we have funded. So Leanne.
Thanks, Jason. Hi, everyone. So since the last commission meeting, the main grant line that we funded that has strong connections to the America 250 themes is the museum makeover grants, which we offered in partnership with Conservation Connection. These were grants that were made for projects that tell new and unique stories about the American Revolution and that connect to the themes of America 250's Connecticut Commission and how those themes reverberate through our nation's history. So I won't go through all 5 of the grants that were made, as I know that they're in your packets, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of them. Some highlights are the Old Newgate Prison was given a museum makeover grant to create an interactive exhibition in the guardhouse that's going to tell stories of the lives and experiences of the people who are incarcerated in the prison, which is a story that they have not previously told. And another highlight would be Wethersfield Historical Society, which is telling the stories of 15 African-American men who served with the Patriots in the American Revolution. So these are projects that are expected to be completed in November. And so we're excited to have those exhibits ready for 2026. We also have some upcoming grant deadlines for quick grants, planning, implementation, and capacity coming up in May, where we're expecting to see some strong America 250 related projects. So we're excited to be updating on that at the next meeting. Thanks.
Thanks, Leanne. Okay, so we have, Cindy mentioned earlier, 2 lights for tomorrow. Rachel has a little bit more information on that she'll share.
So this is quick, but basically it is happening this Friday and Saturday, so it's coming right up. It's a national initiative that is spearheaded by Kevin Hampton, who is in one of the state commissions, and they're aiming to have state houses around the entire country, light up 2 lights outside on Friday, April 18th, and that's signifying the 250th anniversary of Paul Revere's ride. And then on Saturday, they're calling for a National Day of Service. So Connecticut is participating. The State House in Connecticut is going to light up their 2 lights, which they're doing something creative because it's technically against the rules. So they figured out kind of a workaround to get 2 lights there at the State House, and then Sally at the Connecticut's Old State House is also participating. And we have opened it up to organizations, municipalities around the state, and encourage them to also light up their 2 lights on April 18th. We do have a map that we're building on our website. It's linked out from our webpage, which is on the agenda as well. And to date, we have over 70 places that have said they're participating on Friday evening. And it ranges from places like town halls and libraries to private residences. So lots of folks are participating around the state. And then on Saturday, we've got about a dozen or so service projects that we know of so far. And it's kind of largely tied to Earth Day, spring cleanup type things, and then food drives as well. Democracy Center is participating in a food drive, so is Connecticut Museum. And those are the 2 in the room that I know off the top of my head, but there are a good number of folks that are participating in that. So we are coordinating, we're sending our map with the state, so we will be represented on the national map will be represented on there as well. We had a meeting last Friday, and at that point, there were over 1,000 organizations and places participating nationwide that they knew of, and they're still gathering things in as well. So it should be a nice kind of little kickoff on the national level.
Thanks, Rachel.
We have a question from Melvette.
Just a quick question. Did Connecticut Humanities do a press release or a media advisory so that they can be picking it up?
Yeah, we've done 2 so far. We'll do 1 more leading up to this weekend.
And then we probably should do a QR code or something on social media where people give. Yeah, just pair it together, like this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
If that's awesome.
Other questions?
Thanks, Rachel.
All right, back to you, Cindy.
And then very quickly, we're working with Hartford Bonanza on their Independence Day celebration. We will be soliciting sponsorships and tickets for a VIP tent at Bushnell Park on July 5th of this year. And there will be food and drinks and a private area to view the fireworks there. We're hoping to engage some folks in Hartford in this way, and begin to gather excitement for next year, and the 4th of July's celebration. So keep an eye out for more information about that as well.
All right, thanks, Cindy. On to subcommittee updates. We have one from governance, and Ariane. And Cindy, I guess.
I think we already discussed our new designee from the governor's office. Welcome. In terms of the affiliate program, kind of similar report as last time, in that we've seen kind of a slowdown of the submissions. We continue to meet about every 2 weeks, I think, to review the submissions and approve or send questions back. I'd say we're probably looking at 5 or 6 every time we meet. So we definitely at this point want to take a look at more outreach to organizations around the state to make sure that people are aware that the affiliate program exists, and to try to get more, encourage more organizations and more town committees, libraries, kind of everyone to participate. I think at this point, we really want, I know one of our main goals of the program is to create kind of this big database, this big list of groups so that others can go online and see who else is participating. And hopefully that'll lead to more collaborations regionally and across the state. So I think it's really key that we focus on this now. So in our last meeting, Monday, we kind of took a look at the list. I know last time we all met, we went through, we kind of brainstormed a bit about where, like what types of groups we should be looking at. We kind of compiled a list of those categories. So I know Connecticut Humanities team has been going through and trying to put those lists together, get emails, so that we can all start to reach out to those groups. So I think we want to continue that list and fleshing that list out. And then also, ideally, all of us kind of taking part and doing that outreach, so that we have kind of the best messengers, the best connections, making doing that outreach.
Yeah, and so what we will do on our end is distribute an email template and a handout, which is more or less a flyer that we've been distributing it when we are places. We've had it at the conference and at other convenings and gatherings. But we will share with all of our commission members that flyer about the affiliate program. But what we are really hoping is to very quickly right now go through a list of some of the groups of organizations that we have and ask if anybody on the commission has connections and would be willing to do the outreach on the commission's behalf. We started this conversation with governance, but that is a small committee, so we're hoping that folks here can help with that outreach. So
Cindy, sorry, can you take the microphone over there? I don't know if they can hear you. No,
no.
because you don't have. the
Oh,
mic.
we can hear you all much better after what Cindy did, or I don't know when, around, while Sally, in the middle of Sally speaking. Everybody sounds great now.
Sorry, I was just trying to be helpful. Okay. Great.
All righty. Wonderful. So, the first was the Connecticut Restaurant Association. Is anybody particularly tuned into them?
Scott Dolch.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can write me down for that one, Cindy.
The state hero and or heroine, that was an idea proposed at our last meeting.
Well,
That would be Liz with Prudence Crandall
yes.
and her staff.
Fraternal society, oh, the Lions Clubs. Anybody tuned into them?
Somewhat frequently. But I can see if we could flesh something out.
Kiwanis.
We have a connection with Kiwanis.
Libraries, Margaret, would you be willing to reach out via CLA?
Yes, I can take care of that.
Drum and fife corps.
Also do proclamations for them. I mean, we could potentially reach out to them. So.
Connecticut Nonprofit Alliance.
I get the different alliances mixed up. Is that the one, it's an alliance of all the nonprofits? Or is it just, because I know the fellow, there's someone named Ben Shaken who is the lobbyist for one of the alliances, and I think it's the one for, I don't know. Yeah, all right, I'll ask around. I'll take that on.
Chambers of Commerce.
I could do that.
Boys and Girls Clubs.
I can do that.
YMCA, YWCA.
I can do that.
Is somebody volunteer for that? Okay.
The Lodging Association. I looked right at you. The Connecticut Beer Guild. I'm not sure if that's the right name, but I think it is. There's a similar association for distillers. Theaters and performing arts centers.
Cindy, sorry.
Theaters and or performing arts centers.
Get Rufus to reach out.
And then the last thing on the list was agriculture, 4-H clubs, Department of Agriculture, and possibly ag fairs.
Oh, it's an Amherst one.
You go.
I can take it. Just let me know what you need me to do.
Yeah, perfect. So like I said, we'll be distributing an email template with a flyer that can be attached to that, and that will kind of outline the purpose of the affiliate program, very briefly what the commission is working on and why we would like people to sign on and what they get out of it. We'll also create a shorter blurb with the affiliate logo that people can send out in newsletters or other kind of short form content, so that we can continue to get the word out about that as well. Is that everything? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for to everyone who volunteered.
Thank you both. Steve with the education
Sure,
subcommittee.
very briefly, as was mentioned before, MISA is working on some curriculum materials on the revolution and on America 250 related teams. Those materials will be distributed to every teacher in the state. So, because a lot of people would want to do it, but don't know, we're going to provide them with the basic, what they need to know to teach this. How about that? You know, there's some suggestions, provide primary school, maybe later, but right now I think we want to get this into the hand of teachers. We've had a lot of discussion is how do we get students involved? What do we want students doing? What we've come up with is we're going to encourage teachers and students at all levels. Grade 3 when they study Connecticut history, grade 8 when they study US history, and high school US history and college. We're going to encourage people to in their schools to research the Revolutionary War in their own community, in their own region, or in the state of Connecticut. So I think that's the most I think that would be a meaningful approach for both kids and especially for teachers to encourage their kids. So what we're going to suggest is that kids and the guidance to and obviously research at the 3rd grade level is a different thing than research at the college level. We get that, and we're going to find ways that kids can do that type of stuff. How students will be commemorated for this, if, you know, that's a major item. We're having an education committee meeting at the end of the month. The idea of what do we do? What do we do with outstanding entries? That's something that we're going to talk about at our next education meeting. So we want kids looking at Connecticut. We want kids looking at their own. It's the confusing thing for some teachers and kids. There's many communities that didn't exist at the time of the American Revolution, but they can take part as well. Hey, what went on in the state during that time? So that's our education plan at this point.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve. All right. Our timing is right on. So we've concluded the regular order of this America 250 Connecticut Commission agenda, and we've got 15 minutes for public comment. I know we have Alice here, just here to visit.
Just here to visit.
Okay.
And
And
extend an invitation if you'd like. To the, yeah.
oh, sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Since you're in Waterbury and Litchfield is, 15 minutes up that way. On Saturday, we're having a little reenactment of the Lexington Alarm with horses and cannons and muskets and all the church bells in town ringing. It's at 3 p.m. Anthony knows. It's at 3 p.m. On the green in Litchfield. And if you want to go for a drive, we'll be there. Thank you.
thank you. I don't see any other folks in the room. How about online? Any questions? Do we have any members of the public?
They're on a little bit of a lag, so give them a second.
This is Alice. These are the things Alice does. She's extraordinary.
No. Okay,
Could I ask a question? When funding decisions are made at the federal level, is the implication of those that those are yearly decisions or permanent decisions?
Yeah.
Because funding at the federal level is an annual thing, right? There are these,
I suppose that's gonna be up to our Congress. If they decide to act on any of the decisions that have been made by the executive branch on congressional spending. So, but yeah, annually, but we've been operating on a range of continuing resolutions for quite a long time. Okay, motion to adjourn?
Anybody?
Thanks,
Yeah, we
everyone.
went up there, Tom. Thanks. We are adjourned.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.